Trying to destroy the world. My father said that one day, if man continued in his ways, the Creator would annihilate this world. And not be the first. He speaks to you. You must trust that he speaks in a way that you can understand. I saw water. Death by water. I saw new life. A great flood is coming. We build a vessel to survive the storm. We build an ark. What do you want? You don't know your king. There isn't anything for you here. I have men at my back. You stand alone and defy me. I'm not alone. It begins. When they come, there will be desperate, there will be many.
I see how hard this was for you.
Remember, Noah, he chose you for a reason.
That's the end of everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know about you, but just watching that just gives me goosebumps. Okay, this is powerful. I've looked at pretty much all the trailers that's come out. I read as much about the movie as I can, and I can tell you now, everything that I've seen thus far is spot on scripture. What we just saw here was just a glimpse as to what most probably took place 2,000 years ago with a man called Noah. Now, again, what I want to do is I want to take a few minutes this evening, and I want to kind of dissect into Noah's life. Now, the whole topic of Noah, the whole story of Noah, is found starting at about Genesis chapter 5, verse 30. If you guys want to head on over there. And it pretty well ends with chapter 9, verse 29. Actually, that's when Noah died. So Genesis 5 to 30 through chapter 9, verse 29. And we're not going to look at this thing in a verse-by-verse situation. We just don't simply have time. But we want to pick out a few of the things that just come in and take a look at this. Now, other than the fact that, you just saw this clip of what you know about it, and we know that Noah built the ark, what do you know about Noah? What is it that you remember that you've been taught over the years that you have heard that stood out? And this is kind of like what we started last week when we looked at Adam. So what's something that you know about Noah? Anybody? Noah? Okay. Anybody know how old Noah was when he started building? No. Anybody want to take a gander? Caleb's up here going, oh, he was. He was very old. Noah was 500 years old when he had the first of his three sons. He had three sons. The building of the ark came when Noah was probably 560, 550, somewhere in that neighborhood. Now that is a man, you and me, that was 500 and something years old when he was given this task to build this ark. What does that say to you? Other than the fact that we don't live near that long. What does it say to you? Anybody? I want to think what it says to me. I've been in a lot of churches throughout the years, and if you'll think back to even your home church, how many times have you noticed or you have seen some of our senior adults try to stray away do something creative and try to be involved. Have y'all ever seen that? Yeah. Folks, if God can use a 500-plus-year-old man to restructure the world, he can use a current man or woman at 65, 75, 80. Do not ever let age stand in your way of serving God. Never, ever do that. The message here is kind of threefold. First, the wickedness of man is very great, and God's heart is breaking, and man's heart is continually full of evil. Second, God's patience does come to an end. Now, it's hard to imagine that the Creator God that designed the world that we talked about last week, that created the Garden of Eden, that gave us the animals, that gave us the grass, the trees, that made man in his own image and loved man so much, and he was heartbroken when man sinned and changed the whole flow of life, that God could literally get to the point to where he said, I'm done. I'm done. My patience is done. How many times have you, just in your short tenure of life, got to the point to where you just wanted to throw your hands up with something and say, I'm done? Anybody? Okay. How does that feel? Literally, let's talk about this. How does that feel when you get to that point? Where you just want to say, and it's not effective, I'm throwing in a red flag, or I mean a white flag, I'm just done with it. I got to walk away. I'm finished. Maybe it's a class. Maybe it's been in a relationship. Maybe you had an encounter with a parent, or maybe with a sibling, or something like that. Something in school. What's that like? I'm done.
For me, it's like building up of frustration over and over and over, and it just keeps building up, and it's to the point where you're like, this isn't even worth my frustration. Done. Like, and it's like you don't feel better, but you feel a little more relief because you're just like, done.
Done.
Like I'm not going to go through that enough to care anymore.
Do you almost feel like there's been a burden lifted? Kind of. Good point. Anyone else? Anyone else want to share? Jump in. There's been, sure. Okay. Okay. Do you think what you and Sarah have just described, do you think that possibly reflects how God felt when he got to this point? Was that done? Heard. Any thoughts on that? Even though God was done, his patient level was done. The thing we've got to understand is that God did not surrender his purpose in the creation. He did not surrender his purpose in mankind. Because if he had, Noah and his family would not have built that ark. But instead, he chose Noah, Noah's wife. Noah had 3 sons and their wives. That's it. That's all of mankind left. I'm not talking about the animals and the critters. I'm talking about mankind, as you and I know it today. There was 8 people. A father, his wife, 3 sons, and their wife. That's it. That's it. Even in judgment, God does not leave off staying course. Numbers 14:21 says this: all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord. Even in destruction, God's glory rose, because inside that ark was the man and his family that stood according to what God wanted out of man. And that's really what we want to dive into tonight, is what was it about Noah? What was it about this guy? This was an old man. So what was it about him? And maybe not a younger man, or maybe this guy over here. So what was it that just set him apart? Okay. here's where I want to get to. Genesis chapter 6, verse 8. Genesis 6, verse 8. And so when we start looking at these, there's going to be three passages of Scripture. When we start looking at these three passages of Scripture, in my opinion, this is why I believe that we can consider Noah as part of the origins of our faith. Because right now, you and I know that our beginning started with Adam, right? Started with Adam and Eve. We also have to understand that from Adam and Eve to Noah and his family, everything else was destroyed. So now then, you and I can trace our faith literally back to Noah, right? Then from Noah backwards on in. And we're going to actually look at a tad bit at the genealogy here in just a second. Genesis 6, chapter 8. Who has that on their tablet or phone? Will you just read that for me real quick? Genesis 6, 8. Anybody? Read it out.
But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord.
But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. What's grace? What is grace? In a word, what's grace? Blessing? Come on. You're on the right path. What is grace? Kenya, what are you thinking? The word is favor. But Noah found favor in the eyes of God. He found favor. How big of a statement is that verse to you? Now do you see where we can trace our origins of faith back to? This is one of the pillars of faith in the Old Testament. Noah found grace. Noah found favor in the eyes of God. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about this man? Just this verse alone. What do you think, Pat? Sure. What does this say about this man? If Noah found grace, in other words, if God had favor on Noah, what does this say about his walk? Sure, sure. The thing that also screams out loud to me here is that God continually watched this man. You see that? He consistently had his eyes on him. Everything Noah done, everything Noah stood for, all of his teachings, all of the raisings of his family, how he was the husband, how he was the godly man, and how he raised a godly family. All of this stood out head and shoulders above everybody else. And God saw this. And God also saw that the wickedness of the earth was continuing. This is so heartbreaking to me. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Verse 3, chapter 6. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not strive with man forever. Or basically, it will not abide with man forever, for he is indeed flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. Now, this is an important date. And if you guys are underliners, you want to mark that, you want to bookmark it, whatever you want to do. What this means is that at this point, when God made the decision that he has threw his hands up, he's done. 120 years later, he is sure of it. So what we've got to do is we've got to look at that time. What happened in 120 years? Okay? Let's keep reading. At this time, you got to remember, God stood his hands at verse 4. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterwards when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Verse 5 should break every Christian's heart. This is what it says. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. I'm going to read it again. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent, just the even intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Verse 6. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. This should rip our guts. Now, what I have to ask, and I think this is a legitimate question, is how much more evil was the world then than the world is today? Is that a legit question? Is that false? What would be your thoughts on that question? How would you answer that? Okay. All right. Good work. Good work. Who else? What do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm not sure, like, of what all was going on during that time period.
Right.
Maybe some of it.
Sure.
I do know that there's things in society that definitely aren't the way they should be, though. So,
Do you think that there is anything that could be even more evil than what you and I know of in the world today?
I'm sure there is. It's just not what I'm thinking right now.
Sure.
I'm sure it could be worse.
And look at the population compared to what it is now. Sure.
That's the point that I was gonna bring up was that, yeah, we see so much evil
Right.
everywhere right now, but I mean, that's mostly what like media tells us about, like the bad stuff and the good stuff.
That's true.
And there's so many more people now that, yeah, there is a lot of terrible things going on, but you think about how many Christians there are, there is a good amount. Like,
I agree.
it's not that we, obviously, it seems like sin is overpowering and
Sure.
everything, but there are a good amount of Christians, like, of course, at different levels, because this is in America considered as Christian. But,
That's right. And we all know that's baloney.
yeah.
Yeah, that's bogus. But if we don't make some change, if Christ followers do not do what we're called to do, do you see the world getting to this point? I think it's coming. I do. I really do. And in my opinion, in my interpretation of Scripture, that's going to be when God says it's done. That thing's coming. And I'm not a doomsday preacher, never have been, but I do think that we are living in the last days. I don't think the world will stand many more years. Now, I don't know what that definition is. I don't know if that's 5 years, 10 years, 100 years. I don't know. But I truly don't think that the world will stand many more years. I've actually said, and I thought this even back in the early part of my ministry, back some 20, 25 years ago, that it would not surprise me if that the second coming of Christ does not take place while I'm still on the earth. I think we're that close. And I don't stand by that. Now, God can call me home tonight, I understand that. But I seriously believe that we are living in the last days. And having said that, guys, you and I really need to get busy. We've got a job to do. A little old familiar hymn. We're a story to tell to the nation. And that story is that of grace. The story is that of love. It's the story of forgiveness. And it's more than a story. It's the reality of that. You and I have got to be to the point where every person that we come into contact with, we must value their lives so much that we are willing to risk our entire reputation, everything about us, in order to share the gospel. Because the world around us is going to continue to become more corrupt unless you and I start making a difference. And that's our fault. Noah found grace. Paul said in Ephesians 2, verses 8 and 9, for by grace you are saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves, because it is the gift of God, not of works, so that no one can boast. It is by this grace, it is the grace that God saw in Noah that allows you and I to have this eternal salvation of God. It's started back then, it's continual now. Nothing's changed. Second thing I want to look at from Noah, and that's going to be the verse 9. We looked at verse 8, Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 9. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. Now, one of the definitions in my Bible says this on the term just and even perfect. Blameless or having integrity. What does just mean? In other words, if you were described or you were describing somebody as being a just individual, what would that mean? What would that mean? What would it look like? Anybody? What do you think, Kevin?
All I'm doing with grace, we got to keep it.
I'm with that. Anna, what do you
Just.
just? It's hard to define, isn't it? It is.
Well, like the similar things like being able to separate.
Okay.
Like, being able to separate.
And that's deep stuff. But that's not easy, is it? That's not easy at all. Okay. Agreeing with what is considered morally right or good. Here's some of the synonyms of just. Exactly. Precisely. Absolutely. Completely. Wholly, as in W-H-O-L-L-Y. Wholly. And thoroughly. And I think not only do we have to really key in on the word just, I think we've got to look at that last sentence. Noah walked with God. How powerful is that? Strong. Noah walked with God. If we were to look back on our lives today, 20, 30 years from now, could our name be described as Jim, walk with God? Put your name. Because that's where we go. This is the origins of our faith. This is where it starts, guys. It goes all the way back. It goes beyond the New Testament. It goes all the way back to these guys who literally were set apart and willing to risk everything in order to stand by their convictions. And this point, they didn't even know Jesus. This is God. They found God alone. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. He was a just man. He walked with God. And last, I'm going to go over to chapter 7, verse 1. Scripture says this. Then the Lord said to Noah, come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are, what's the word? Righteous. You are righteous. You are righteous before me in this generation. Notice, he goes back and he uses that phrase again, in this generation. In this generation. What is righteous? So let me break that apart. We've taught it. Break it apart. It's righteous. Where can we find good definitions of the term righteous? It's written. Is that what you think? Okay, exactly. Exactly. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Look at what Paul said in the latter part of Ephesians. And we've taught on this a dozen times in here. Remember that whole armor of God? What's the breastplate? It's righteousness. Why do we want that? What does the breastplate cover? Vital organs. It's here. It's everything. It's the heart. It's the critical parts of the body. Because that, in and of itself, is we've got the breastplate on. It is what we are able to defend ourselves against all the tricks that Satan has to offer because we're moving forward. We're not turning around running. The breastplate is backless. Remember that? We talked about that. The Roman breastplate didn't have a back because the Romans were never allowed. They were not taught to turn and run. They push forward. And this is a guy that was found righteous. He said, I have, what's the word again? I have seen that you are righteous before me. How, my God, how powerful is it for the God of the universe to say to a single man, I see that you are righteous before me. That's, this should be on our to-do list. This should be on our, not even our bucket list to do it and let it go. This should be what we are trying to achieve. To be found righteous in the eyes of God. And I'll tell you now, it doesn't come with age. It's not about age. It's not about whether you're a guy. It's not about whether you're a girl. It's not about your race. It's not about where you're from. It is all about giving everything to Christ. You remember what we talked about on the very first Sunday in H2O? We looked at the first part of a three-part statement. Jesus says, if you want to follow me, you have to, what's the first part of it? What is it? It's die to self. Deny yourself. And this is where we are. If you and I want to be found righteous in the eyes of God, you and I have to start with dying to self. Then Scripture teaches, this is Jesus talking, by the way, then we got to take up our cross, and then we've got to follow me. And by the way, follow me's topic Sunday night. I hope you're here. Because we're going to rip that to shreds of what it really means to follow Christ. It's the bookend. Deny yourself, die to self, take up the cross, follow me. Boom. That's it. And all of that together takes us right back to a simple man called Noah. Did you notice that anywhere in Scripture, and by the way, if you've never read about Noah, you really need to dive into this. Nowhere in this do we find that this was a wealthy man, that he was an intelligent man. Nowhere. It's not there. This is not the governor. This is not the king. This is just some honest, hardworking man who loved his family. He had a good history, a good genealogy. He was raised right. And he was just trying to do the right thing and to love and to provide for his family. And out of nowhere, verse 13. Actually, we're going to back up. Chapter 6, right where we were, verse 9. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with God. Verse 10. Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Please do not name your children Japheth. Okay? That is just so hard for me to say, and I really want to stay connected with you when y'all have children in the latter years. I don't want to say how's Japheth because it would just, I just okay? We'll do that. All right. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Verse 11. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Ties right back up to verses 5 and 6. Verse 12. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. Verse 13. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them. Catch the term them? I will destroy them with the earth. And then verse 14 starts the instructions on building the ark, what to make it out of, how to make it, what the size of it is, yada, 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 what to put in it. Verse 22, chapter 6, after God had given him the specific blueprint. Thus Noah did according to all that God commanded him, so he did. This is a man that didn't even question God. This is the guy who is, we know he's at least 500 years old, okay? Actually, he's probably around 520, 540, okay? God comes to him and says, I need you to build this ark that's literally the length of 2 football fields long, okay? Almost 1.5 football fields wide. And at this point in time, rain had never fell on the earth. Think that through. I'm from the South. It rains all the time there. And I'm talking big honking rain. Okay? Big rain. How many of you have read just within the past 8 to 12 months on the news and seen on TVs about the flooding in North America. See that? Water is power. It's powerful. Do you know that 2 inches of water, 2 inches of water across the road will sweep your car off the road? 2 inches. Okay? I am not exaggerating. I have literally lost 2 vehicles in floods. Okay? I know what water does. And God says, I need you to build this big honking boat, and this is what I'm going to get you to do. And Noah loved God so much, and in his innocence, he didn't ask, well, how are you going to do it? He just simply said, okay. And he started. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a picture of faith. Period. Nothing else. And I don't know about you, I want that kind of faith. This is where I want to get to. And I'll be the first to tell you, I got a lot of them. But I want to get to the point that God can tell me something so stupid, so ridiculous, that's totally out of the, it just cannot possibly happen. And I just simply say, that's right. Because you see, Noah knew something. And it's never recorded, but you have to know simply by reading the text how Noah must have felt. And there's a line that we just saw in this movie. And we're not going to go back and flip it. We're not going to go see this. But he's confronted by some of the townspeople, by the people trying to overtake him. And you had to imagine that the people around him was ridiculing him and making fun of him and putting him down and trying to do everything they can to keep him from building the ark. But once the ark was built and the animals start going in, then all of a sudden the rain comes, and all of a sudden now Noah's the smartest man on the planet, right? And everybody else is mad. They're trying to get in. And when this guy that they portrayed in this movie comes up and he says, I have all the men to my back, and you are alone. Noah just simply says, I am not alone. That's where you and I have got to be. We've got to know the fact that we're not alone. If we were all honest, brutally honest, everybody that's right here within the sound of my voice, probably within the past 4 weeks, I'd say the past 7 days, have felt it. And I'm just trying to be real here. Okay, we felt it. And I want you to know something. If you have accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior, you can rest assured that you can claim that exact statement, I am not alone. I'm just not alone. How long did it take Noah to build it up? I put something on Facebook last night. Remember the number I put up? Anybody know? Anybody remember the number? I put 1,600 up. That's a critical number, in my opinion. I've yet to figure out the significance of it. I intend to do some more research. From the beginning of the planet, when God created the earth, okay, until God brought the rain, was just under 1,600 years. It was legit around, what's my number? Probably around 1,576 to 1,596 years that God allowed the earth to live. And so in that time, the earth got that corrupt. That's power. And we know for a fact we're living in 2014, which is 2014 years after the death of Christ, right? Okay. So we know for a fact that we have lived longer on the earth than Noah had lived, or Noah had knew the earth. Okay. Kind of muddled there. So somewhere, in my opinion, there's a link. That number is magical. Would y'all agree with that? The Bible's perfect in numbers. You know that? There's always something that connects with it. Haven't quite figured it out, but I believe it is. Now, how long did it take Noah to build the ark? Here's some of the things I jotted down. Genesis chapter 3 talks about the 120 years. Remember that? We looked at that a while ago. This is the exact moment God knew he was going to destroy the earth. But he had not yet talked to Noah. Realize that? Okay? He hadn't talked to Noah yet. We know that Noah was 500 years old when he started having children. That's Genesis 5, verse 32. Genesis 7:6 tells us that Noah was 600 when the floods came. Okay? So now we've narrowed it to a span of 100 years, right? Okay? We also know that Noah was 500 when the boys began to be born. Common thought process is have a child every other year. Okay? So if you did that, that's 6 years. We know for a fact that the boys were married when he told Noah to build the ark, right? He said, take you, your wife, your sons, and their wives. So we know that the boys had to be between 20 and 40 so that they would have already taken wives. Right? Okay. Noah's son Shem was 100 years old 2 years after the flood. So that takes us to possibly 98 years to possibly build the ark. Now, given the fact that all three of Noah's sons were not only born, they'd married, you've got to think they'd married again, just like I said, between 20 and 40. And if that's the case, you subtract the 20 to 40 years from Sham's age of 98, and you've got a window of 58 to 78 years that it took Noah and his family to build the ark. Now, let's just look at it on the short side of it. 58 years. I'm 53. Is this sinking in yet? Okay. At bare minimum, 58 years it took him to build this ark. Now, here's what I want to. This is the point I need us to drive home. Can you imagine the garbage that he and his family had to put up with for this 58 years before the flood came? Or 70 years, somewhere in that area. We're just going to use the 58 years as a point of reference. Can you imagine what all he had to put up with? What does that say to you? Does that speak to you? That screams to me. Because can you imagine, and I'm just going to use me here as an example. I can't imagine what my life would be like if every waking moment of my life, people were trying to get into my way and trying to slow me down from following Christ and from doing what God called me to do. And I'm talking, they were belligerent. This is evil. They were trying to do whatever it took to slow you down. I cannot imagine every waking moment of me having to put up with that for as long as I am. Some of your parents are about my age. Think about that. What do you think life was like for Noah and his wife and the sons of their wives during this window of time? What do you think? Chris?
Like you said before, they had the
Sure. What else? What do you think, Hannah?
Yeah, put up with that every time. Crazy.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, let's just bring this into reality. How many of you have had the point in your life to where you're already tired of other people trying to tell you what to do and to direct you and to give you guidance? You there? Okay. Even if it comes from parents, some of you are probably tired of hearing it. And I'm just trying to be real here. All right. You maybe hear from grandparents. You maybe hear from, other, not only just other family members, but maybe teachers back home. Maybe you've got some weird professor here on the campus that's trying to tell you, well, you don't need to do this, you need to do that. Okay, by the way, if you're a freshman, that's coming. Okay, you will experience that. But honestly, what are your thoughts when somebody tries to handle your direction? What do you do? How do you approach that? Taylor, what do you think? Somebody ever done that to you? Make you mad? Does it make you more determined to accomplish, for the most part? Exactly, and that's really the point I wanted to bring out. It forces you to second guess yourself. Okay? Exactly. Exactly. No.
Oh, I just felt like it.
How? What's your tricks?
Because I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it's good. Because there's no kind of sense.
Okay? But let's say that this is a career decision that you've locked in on. Okay? And I mean there's no change in your mind. And then all of a sudden, the people closest to you, moms, dads, brothers, sisters, are all up in your grill saying, that's bad, that's wrong too.
I mean, I'm used to it. I mean, I had that happen to me before, but I mean, it just motivates me to like go out and not think about it.
Exactly, it motivates you, and it's just like Taylor was saying, kind of forces you, but it also forces you.
I feel like you just can't let people get to you because it's your life and you live it how you want to.
That's right.
Everyone did their really.
Exactly. But the only way you can do this, and to do this successfully, is to know that the person you are following is Jesus Christ, and you're not following me. Because without it, plans falter. Wise man builds his house on a rock. Okay? Period. And I'm not talking stone. I'm talking about J-E-S-U-S. I simply cannot imagine the endurance it took for him to stay the course. But now, not only that, he taught this to his family. His wife had to support him in this. Y'all get this? His wife had to be right there beside him day in, day out, making the chicken noodle soup and taking it out there too, and doing the bologna sandwiches or whatever it took to take care of Noah. And then the boys are not only involved in it, and these are not harebrained boys. These are actually men that are out there now, side by side, working with their father in the same task that they know their dad stands for. This is a commitment to their father. Y'all see this? This is a very brilliant picture of what obedience to parents looks like. Because God did not talk to Shem, Ham, and Japheth. God talked to Noah. Noah said, we're doing this. The family said, I got you. And I don't know about you, but there was times me growing up, I couldn't say that to my parents. My parents wanted me to do this, and I don't have that. I know. No. Y'all with me on that? Okay? Scripture doesn't teach this. Scripture says that you have to obey a parent. And this is it's the ultimate snapshot of obedience. Here's your thought. We know that the boys are fairly young. They're 20 to 40. They're barely newlyweds. They don't have children. God did not save the wives' families. Think that through. The boys' wives, Ham, Shem, and Japheth's wives' families, he could say. Okay. Now, how does this picture look to you? All I know is this. God is more than capable of throwing his hands up and saying, I'm God. But also know that God did not give up on us. He didn't give up on mankind. Quite frankly, I'm thankful that he did. thankful that he did. Because if not, then you and I would not be here. We would just be under one big water bubble.
Listen, the wife got sick too, right? I'm just saying the point you brought up towards the beginning of the message of us feeling lonely. I mean, I can't imagine, even though I'm not close with my mom.
Right.
Like, if anything like that would happen to my mom, I would feel so lonely, but just showing their faith that they had.
Right.
They did not feel lonely, they knew God had a purpose for them.
Exactly. They knew God had a purpose. And nowhere in Scripture does it say that the wives or his daughter-in-laws were basically throwing a mutiny saying, no, get my mama. Go get my mama. It's just, it wasn't there. They followed, stay with me on this, this is so deep. The wives followed the leadership of their husbands. See that? We talked about this last week. Who's the spiritual leader of the house? Husbands. Okay? Direct line. This is not deviated at all through Scripture. Wives followed the husbands. Who did the sons follow? Followed their father. Who was spiritual patriarch. Okay? Now this is a pattern. This is not just something we talk about. There's so much truth here. There's so many nuggets of just golden truth that is here that we cannot even attempt to dive into it all at one time. What can we take out of this? Stay the course. Right? Stay the course. When the world's beating down around you and God's told you to do something that looks totally ridiculous to everybody else, stay the course. Stay the course. Believe that you are not alone. And another line that I really think is so vivid that springs out of Scripture is one of the daughter-in-laws asked Noah, I don't know if you guys caught this a while ago, is this the end of everything? And he said, no, it's the beginning. It's the beginning. And he was so spot on. Guys, a relationship with Christ is the beginning. It doesn't deviate. It doesn't change. And wherever you are, wherever you're at spiritually, it is my prayer that you and I seek this kind of faith. This is where we need to get to. There's nothing this powerful that we see in the New Testament, right? Nothing. But yet we see the strength of the New Testament people because of the faithfulness of a man called Moses. Them deviant. And you and I can look back to these origins of faith, and we can feel